grab that for just a quick second. So all bears are omnivores, and that means that they can eat different kinds of fruits and different parts of plants, and they'll also eat some meat products. His diet consists of a lot of different fruits and vegetables. This is not just limited to what I have. I just grabbed a very small portion of his diet. He eats a few pounds of produce a day, but you can see there's some mango, pineapple, carrots, sweet potato. Today he had watermelon, grapes, and strawberries, but I don't know if I grabbed them into this container. And then he also receives a bear chow. So this is a wild carnivore bear chow. It contains all the vitamins and nutrients that they would need, and they really enjoy it. Also, 3 days a week, Kurt receives about 2.5 pounds of fish. Today was a fish day, so he already had a pre-breakfast before this breakfast that he's going to be coming out soon, and then be eating. But what's really neat is that these bears, even though they're omnivores, a lot of the times spectacled bears will actually eat different like fruits and vegetables, but they'll also eat leaves, they'll eat bark, they'll eat the roots, so they'll eat any kind of a plant. This is really beneficial because when they're eating all of the fruits and vegetables, they're also ingesting the seeds. And as they're going out and exploring, they will actually, when they defecate, they'll defecate the seeds as well. And so they're seed dispersers, which means they're really beneficial for forest health because wherever the bears go and wherever they go to the bathroom, you'll see growth of different kinds of plants. Sometimes you'll see that in our exhibits. Actually, you'll see like tomato plants coming up, or cantaloupe will be growing in here. Sometimes they don't last too long because the bears like to rip them up, but it just goes to show how beneficial bears are to their natural ecosystems. And if you hear that noise in the background, that is us just unlocking a couple of the doors, and we'll be shifting Kurt out in just 1 second. He'll be coming out in just a second. So Kurt is about a 7-year-old, oh there he is, 7-year-old spectacled bear. You can see on his face those markings, and those tan gold markings circle his eyes, and they kind of look like spectacles, and that's how they get their name. And when you look in those markings, you can see different black spots, and those are unique markings that are just as unique to those bears as our fingerprints. He's going up, he's exploring what's on there. So on top of that toy, we put some of his food, but we also spread some honey around, and that's what he's investigating. They're very agile. He'll probably demonstrate that in just a little bit, but you can see he's maintaining his balance really well, and he's doing a good show actually that he's standing up. You can see that his front legs are actually longer than his back legs. Spectacled bears are really great climbers, and their front legs being longer than their back legs helps them climb better. Most of the time when you come and visit Kurt, well, maybe not most of the time, but a good portion of the time he's on top of the climbing structure in the bed up on top. He'll climb it, he'll just those posts to the top and sleep. Spectacled bears are arboreal bears. A lot of times they will, or he'll get all of this. A lot of the times they will be found in trees. They do like to live in forest areas where they can spend a lot of their times up high. But bears are used to all different kinds of environments, so that doesn't mean that they are just found in forests. They also can be found in like grasslands and lower elevations as well. Yeah, so bears are solitary, especially the spectacled bear. They really only come together for breeding, and then they'll go about their separate ways. So sometimes if you see two adults together, it will be around breeding season. And then once the cubs are born, they'll stay with mom for about 8 to 12 months, and before they go off on their own. But spectacled bears are also known as Andean bears, and their name kind of gives a clue where they're from. They're from South America. What's really cool about spectacled bears is that they are the only bear species that's found in South America, and they can be found along the Andes range, anywhere from like Chile, Argentina, Peru, but they also can be found in Colombia and Bogota, Ecuador, any place like that. And they're the last remaining short-nosed species of bear. They were closely related to a Floridan spectacled bear, but that bear species has since been extinct. So if he turns around and never shows us his face again after he gets all of the honey off of this toy, you can see his snout and his muzzle is a little bit shorter than a lot of other bear species. Believe it or not, Spectacled bears are one of the smaller species of bear. The males will usually get up to about 340 pounds. Females are a little less than half that amount of weight once they're fully grown. And they'll be about 5 to 6 feet in length. Just for comparison, some grizzly bears or polar bears can get like up to about 800 pounds, close to 1,000 pounds, some of them. So he's going to be quite a bit smaller than that, but there are some bear species that only weigh about 120 pounds. So bear species in general just can have a wide variety of weights. And his food we did cut up pretty finely today. I mean, you can notice some of the food down that was on the ground or what I had in my hand earlier, but that doesn't mean that we just necessarily need to give him the food that's that size. So think of it, when you eat an apple, you can eat an apple whole, or you can cut it up into fourths, or you can cut it up into like 60 pieces if you wanted to. Really, we do the same thing with our animals. They spend a lot of their time foraging, and so we like to mimic that. And so we can cut up their food into different sizes and present it in different ways, like either in a puzzle feeder or hiding it around on the exhibit for them to find. And this mimics their natural foraging behaviors. So Kurt will spend a lot of his time doing that. He'll like to climb on the structure and sleep or just hang out. We also have a pool on this exhibit. I don't know if he'll get into the pool this morning, but he might get into it later today because it's supposed to be pretty hot in San Antonio. And he will be found swimming occasionally or walking. Sometimes he'll just walk in the pool completely upright, kind of like what he's doing right now, but in his pool. And those are seem to be some of his favorite activities here at the zoo. I touched upon about his diet a little bit earlier, just eating about all the fruits and vegetables. Spectacled bears are one of the more herbivores, like herbivorous of the bear species. So most of their diet is going to consist of different plants and vegetables. Where they live in South America in their natural habitat, there's food available year-round. Of course, some of that food is going to look different if the fruits and vegetables are in season, or they may result more to eating bark and roots and like the leaves of different trees. But they don't, because they don't really go into a hibernation or a torpor behavior, they're going to be more active year-round. You can see his face, how it is a little bit smaller. And he's just using his tongue. I think that's avocado that he's eating right now to scoop up all of his food. Unfortunately, in their natural environment, natural habitat, their main threats are going to be habitat destruction. So as the spread of urbanization continues to grow and spread, their habitat can be torn down to make way for some development, or it actually can be fragmented by putting a road in the middle of a forest, let's say, or in between some natural wood. So we don't know exactly how many spectacled bears there are in their natural environment. We're thinking about 10,000, but they are still considered a vulnerable species. Their habitat shrinks about 3 to 4% every year. However, there's a lot of different conservation groups that are down all through South America that are working with the spectacled bears, and they do some really cool work. They'll set up camera traps, and so they can see where the bears are moving and how they're spending their time. And they can track the bears because of those markings on their faces. I mentioned a little bit earlier about how all of their facial markings are different and unique, and that way if you look at 10 different spectacled bears and you look specifically at these markings, you can really tell the individuals apart. And that's how you're able to track them if they're bears that are just out in the Andes Mountains. They're naturally pretty shy bears. They're usually pretty elusive, which is why camera traps are such an amazing tool. Not only will you be able to see spectacled bears, but camera traps are just used to see all different kinds of wildlife in their natural environment. Let's see if he'll get some of this PVC. He's very strong and very curious. So all of our toys have to be durable. But all of our enrichment toys, you may see them presented different ways depending on the animal. So this PVC tube that we hung for Kurt, we easily can hang it for a primate, or we can put it on the ground and someone has to move it around and flip it over on the ground in order to get any of the food out of it. But PVC is something that we can easily make for our bears. Our cats can receive PVC toys, our primates can. So a lot of our toys and our enrichment items we can give to different animals in different ways and to encourage their natural behaviors. I brought out one of his toys, but maybe we can take a good look at it. And you can see, get an idea of just how strong these bears are. So this is just a heavy duty feeder tube. It's made out of really thick, really durable plastic. This was made by a company that makes toys specifically for zoo animals. So you can see kind of how beat up it is because our animals like to play with it. So you can see a lot of different scratch marks, just a lot of different texture on this tube. This has just seen a lot of play. But also on the top of it, it's kind of hard to see, but the chain Kurt has pushed so hard, he's actually pushed the quick links and the chain into the size of this plastic, just to go and show you just how strong he is. But they're very curious animals. He especially likes to interact with different enrichment items that we put on exhibit. And so if we put any new novel items out there for him, he'll investigate them. Sometimes on his own timeline, but he'll get to it. And that's the part of enrichment. We want to give him something to come back to and interact with throughout the day. We don't want it to be just a 30-second thing, but to spread out and spend his time throughout the day. So spectacled bears are in the bear family, so they are closely related to other different bear species. I don't know exactly which bear species they're most related to, or if it's some sort of extinct bear species. But they are the only bear species that is found in South America, which is really neat. And because they are omnivores, so occasionally they will eat meat, they are also South America's largest predator. Kurt really likes his fish. He receives fish 3 times a week on Wednesdays, and Fridays. It's about 2.5 pounds of fish, and that's one of his favorite food items. Interesting though, he will just rip out the spines, so he'll debone his fish before he eats it. And that can also just show how dexterous they can be, like with their mouth and with their tongue and their teeth, but also with their claws. And right now he's just eating some of the other fruits and vegetables that we put out this morning. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about our spectacled bear? Again, this is Kurt. He's 7 years old. His birthday was in December, like mid-December. So Kurt is a very curious bear. He likes to explore different things that we put out on exhibit for him, but he also will investigate his exhibit throughout the day. We give him lots of different options of how to spend his time in the exhibit. So he has this great climbing structure. Again, spectacled bears love to climb. They'll usually hang out in trees. And we kind of mimicked that with this climbing structure, and he has a hammock bed area on top that he can sleep in, he can out on. Sometimes you'll see him take some of his food up there and he'll eat up there. So he spends a lot of time up there, but he also has different areas in the back where he can sleep under some of the trees that are on the exhibit in the shade. He can make a nest. In the cooler months, sometimes we'll make hay beds out here for him. And he also has a pool that he enjoys spending time in once it starts getting a little bit warmer. So today it's supposed to be, I think, in the 90s, if I read that correctly, which is hot. And if I could spend all day in a pool, I definitely would do so. Kurt will spend a lot of his time in the pool, and we actually will put toys sometimes in the pool. Kurt is very strong, so all of the toys that we put in there, we usually secure with chain, so that way they don't get thrown to the moat or just broken. But we'll hang toys and put them into the side of the pool that he can play with and manipulate around. So we really try and do a lot of different enrichment for him. We feed these guys multiple times a day, so sometimes we'll be bringing him inside and putting out new food and new enrichment for him to enjoy throughout the day. On that, it's called an iceberg because you are supposed to be able to put ends that we can hang, which is what I did this morning. But there's some honey on there, so he's probably just trying to get the last of the honey. Bears can live up into their upper 20s in zoological settings. They can live about like mid-teens, early 20s in their natural habitats. But they can live quite a long time. Oh, so occasionally when it gets warm out, which here it's going to happen very soon, we will make icebox enrichment for a lot of our animals, but especially for our bears. And we can get really creative with what we put in there. So we can make smaller ice blocks with some produce and then we can freeze it. And we also can make different layers of ice blocks. So you can make a small layer with, like raspberries or something, a secondary layer with blueberries, and a third layer with pineapple or whatever you want to make. And then give it to them. And it's a great feeder because they either have to work with breaking it apart, which Kurt does very well, or just letting the sun melt it, which Kurt also does very well. But it's a great food because it's a slow feeder in a sense, because you either have to wait for the ice block to melt to receive the food, or you can just break it apart and eat it as is. The Nutrition Center makes great ice blocks for some of these guys because they have a huge freezer space up in their Nutrition Center. So we can have like the 5-gallon ice buckets, and they'll make different layers. Sometimes they'll color code them for like the 4th of July. They'll make red, white, and blue ice pops. So his pool does have a couple of steps, and they're on the side of the exhibit closer to the public side, so they're harder to see. But Kurt knows where they are, so he can use the steps to get inside of the pool if he's choosing to. He may just be looking at the water.
A lot of people are asking about the buzzards and why he isn't eating them.
Oh, he's not eating the buzzards because he has better food that we give him. The buzzards are just opportunistic. So we give a lot of our animals a lot of really good food, and the natural wildlife knows that. And so that's why they like to hang out at a lot of times in different exhibits. Kurt does have a different watering bowl that are closer to where he came out, but sometimes he likes to drink out of the pool. And where he is right now, those are where some of the steps are, so he can get in and out of the pool. It's the same way. You may be able to see the mallards in the background of the pool too. They're just swimming, they're free-flighted, they're just San Antonio ducks. But
how many cubs adult pair of bears have usually?
They can have 1 or 2. It depends. And like I said, they can stay with mom for about 8 to 12 months. When they're younger, especially, they'll climb on mom's back, and that's how they move around. They'll be on mom's back. And it's really neat. And then after that time, they'll go out and they'll find their own territory and move around. Bears tend to be solitary animals. They can be in the same, like sometimes their territory will overlap with other bears. So they will come in contact with other bear species and with other animals. And just as their habitat becomes more fragmented, and as the available habitat just shrinks and they're competing over the same resources, they are coming closer into contact with each other. So they are learning how to live in closer ranges with each other. But that said, that doesn't necessarily mean that they spend a lot of time with each other. Just think about like when you live in an apartment, you live in close contact with your neighbors, but that doesn't mean that you're spending all your time with your neighbors. Kind of the same thing.
They look pretty massive.
They are really long. So the question was about Kurt's claws, and they look pretty long, and that is an accurate observation. So Kurt and all spectacled bears are really great climbers, and so they'll use their claws to help them climb and just dig into either the climbing structure posts that we have here or trees if they were to climb trees. But also spectacled bears, they will eat a wide variety of plants. And they just don't eat the fruits and vegetables, but they can eat the leaves, they can eat the bark, they can eat the roots, and so their claws can help tear up different plants in order to access the food. And so if they come across a tree that they like, they can use those claws to tear it down. They can split a tree trunk in half or something like that to eat like the pulp and the interior of the plant, or they can reach it to grab shoots, like the smaller browse and the newer browse on the trees, and eat that as well, because that could be their preference. These guys love to eat the different I forgot what family of plant it is, but it's the family of plant that pineapples are from. And a lot of spectacled bears will actually prefer to eat the tops of the pineapple. It's actually one of their favorite foods that they tend to eat. Kurt is the opposite. I mean, he likes to eat the pineapple itself, but a lot of their bears in the natural environment will see this type of plant and they'll eat the outskirt. Sometimes our animals like to show us the, this is his picture-worthy sight, he likes to think today. Or maybe the sun's in his face. It's shining right over the side, so maybe he's just eating away. I don't know. Oh. And I just want to take a second to thank everybody that has donated to our emergency relief fund here at the San Antonio Zoo. We may be closed, but we are still caring. There are multiple animal care specialists that are here every single day taking really good care of all of the animals here, not just the spectacled bear. And so thank you so much for everyone that has donated. If you are able to donate, we do have an emergency fund. I believe there's a link attached to this Facebook post, or you can go to our website and there will be instructions there on how to donate. Again, we are closed, but we're still caring for these animals, and there's a dedicated group of people that are going to be here every single day to care for these animals. So really thank you for your support, whether it be financially or just for tuning in and watching these Facebook Lives and sharing them and commenting and talking about them with your friends. It really means a lot to us that people are participating because we love to talk about the animals that we care for. We love being able to talk about what we do on every single day for these animals. You won't ever meet a zookeeper that isn't passionate about their job and about what they do. And so this opportunity is just really unique and special for us, and I really hope it's something unique and special for you as well.
Besides the physical traits, what other differences do spectacled bears compare to other species?
Besides their physical traits? So there was a question of, besides their physical traits, what makes them different from other bear species? Well, so
Go ahead and talk.
But bears are just really unique animals in general. They are very intelligent, they're very playful and curious about their environment. And so that's one of the challenges and one of the perks of working with them, because we are constantly striving to think of new ways to keep them entertained, to keep them stimulated and to provide different options for them to spend their time and to help promote their natural behaviors, whether it's climbing or swimming or foraging or giving them different places to sleep, because bears can spend a lot of their times to sleep. And just like dogs, I mean, he's shook and he hasn't gone into the pool yet, but after he goes into the pool, sometimes you'll see him shake off like that and water will go everywhere. Oops. I just tripped over their food, but that's okay. That's what that noise just was.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about the bears?
animal care specialist here at the zoo. And we just finished talking about Kurt, our spectacled bear. Thank you so much for joining me and tuning in to this Facebook Live. Feel free to come back and check out any of our other Facebook Live posts. We post them about twice a day, and they're all available on our Facebook, so you can go back and see them. Thank you so much for joining me. Feel free to share. That's one of the great ways about supporting us. Also, if you feel inclined and you're able, please consider financially supporting us during this time. We do have an emergency relief fund that you can donate to through our website, www.saz.org. And just because we're closed, we're still caring about all of our animals, and we're helping secure a future for all of the animals. Thank you.